Hi, it's Matthew Hull. I'm back with another healthcare blog, THCB Spotlight, and this time I'm talking to two of my new friends from Carenostics, which is a company you've probably never heard of that just raised $5 million last week. I'm here with Kanishka Rao, who's the COO, and Bharat Rao, who's the CEO of Carenostics. And this is the company I've got to know from the time I spent working with my friends at Bayer G4A, where they're one of the featured companies of last year. I mean, full disclosure, I've been helping these guys a little bit with bits of advice they probably haven't been taking. Anyway, but let's start off. Kanishka, first things first, you guys got given $5 million to do what exactly and why?
Thanks, Matthew. Well, yeah, it's very exciting being able to work on. I guess the genesis of it is unfortunately based in tragedy. About a year and a half ago, my grandfather, Bharat's father-in-law, unfortunately passed away from kidney failure. And he didn't know he had kidney failure until his kidneys had already failed. And this kind of opened our eyes to just how big a problem undiagnosed chronic disease is. In chronic kidney disease, for example, more than 80% of people with kidney disease don't know they have it. And there's so much that could be done to slow or stop that disease progression had they known earlier. But this is really, the reality of this situation, and talking to more people to realize how common this problem is really what galvanized us to go and start Carenostics. And really what we do is we leverage AI to find these people with undiagnosed and undertreated chronic disease and give the information to clinicians to activate them to intervene earlier.
All right, that all sounds super clever, and I'm sure there's clearly a big need for that, not only a personal one, but globally. All right, you guys have you somehow obviously you've been talking to each other. You have the same last name. There is that relationship, but what does using AI? I mean, there's so many variants of AI, and everyone's an expert in AI now. But what does AI mean, and what's your background in AI to try and figure out how to come at this problem?
Thanks, Matthew. So I'm one of the old guys in AI. I actually got my PhD in AI in the early 90s and have been working in healthcare AI since 1995 and found it the most fascinating AI machine learning problem because there is no data as diverse and complex as healthcare data. And I was initially in Siemens, and as you pointed out last name, Kanishka at that time in the early 2000s was a young kid. And we developed something like 20 plus healthcare AI products that were deployed at 1,000 plus health systems worldwide, serving millions of patients every month. And all Kanishka heard from me was AI is going to change healthcare, right?
Hang on. I thought AI was only invented like last March, but anyway, maybe.
No, in fact, we built AI systems that actually went through an FDA clinical trial. My team developed the very first healthcare AI machine learning product that actually found lung cancer nodules on CT data and received FDA approval in a PMA in almost like a full clinical trial. So AI has been around for a long time, and it has had a lot of success working on single sources of data like images. And the advantage of using AI, for instance, on an image is that an image in Mayo Clinic and an image done, let's say, in a rural area in Alabama or in Romania is going to be a CT scan is a CT scan. But when you actually go and look at EHR data, which is what we focus on, it's a completely different issue. You have and we've developed, in my past life, we've developed AI systems that actually analyze millions of patient records using machine learning to automatically measure the quality of care. To my knowledge, the only AI machine learning system deployed in EHR data at scale, at rate, to date, serving over 5 million patients every quarter. So now we asked the question when Kanishka came to me, and my son asked me, what could we do to prevent what happened to my father-in-law, to his grandfather, from happening again? I said, where AI can have the most impact is, as he pointed out, early detection of chronic disease. And that's what we do. We suck in the entire EHR and try to identify these patients early, as Kanishka was talking about.
That's great. Are you Bharat, are you doing this? Are you building a big data set yourself? And obviously, a lot of companies doing that in various aspects of healthcare. Or are you doing this more with individual EHRs or individual hospital systems or clinics?
So, Matthew, that's a great question. And one of the things we sat down to do was why hasn't healthcare AI and EHRs taken up? And one of the fundamental reasons is that health systems are very protective, understandably, of their data. So our approach is not let's build a massive AI data lake from data from thousands of health systems. It's rather to go to individual health systems and build local AI models that are personalized to that health system's data practices, the kind of data they collect, how they practice medicine, the patient population they have. And we have found that those AI models have incredible results in terms of being able to identify patients. And then we built this in a no-code framework so that when we go to a new health system, we can learn an AI model for the same chronic disease, for instance, for chronic kidney disease or for asthma, in a matter of weeks from the EHR that is personalized to the data, to the labs, the text, the medicines, et cetera, that are captured in that EHR that are representative of that health system's practices.
Very interesting approach there. So Kanishka, this is great. I tell you that there are patients who I think may or may not have this kidney disease or asthma or what have you. What actually happens next? How does it work out the sort of cold face with the health system?
Yeah, and Matthew, to go back to what Bharat was just talking about, that's something we spent a lot of time on, again, on the question of why hasn't AI scale in health? And a big thing is when you think of this as just an AI problem, you're missing the vast majority of what needs to be done. Identification is just step one. Once that patient's identified, my grandfather, someone could have said he's at risk for kidney failure pretty easily. But then the process by which he gets tested, he gets evaluated, he gets diagnosed, he gets risk stratified, and he gets on treatment, that's where putting these AI insights into action really needs to happen. And so what Carenostics does is not only, go into the health system and develop the AI for them and surface the insights of which patients need to be identified. It also then integrates these insights back into existing clinical workflows. So you can think at the point of care for a physician in the EHR, but you can also think to a population health coordinator, to the population health dashboard, or a distinct summary of who the patients are that you need to reach out to an outreach coordinator or a practice manager. These are all modalities that we support, all the way up to directly reaching out to the patients, through a text engagement campaign. And this is really, as alluded to, the problem is solved both by identifying and risk stratifying these patients, but just as much the other half of activating and helping support the clinicians in getting these patients on the treatment they need.
Okay, so you're basically end to end there, right? Saying we can figure it out and help you, and so you actually would have like something pop up in the EHR in Epic or whatever to alert a patient to actually, a physician to actually do something with the patient in front of them who they may not have thought about before.
Yeah, and that's built today, Matthew, at I'm in New York right now at Hackensack Meridian Health, right across the river, the largest health system in New Jersey. We currently have alerts popping up for patients who we believe are high risk for undiagnosed chronic kidney disease. And phenomenally, we've shown through our amazing partners there and the work we've done there building this platform out, that we can actually find 3 times more patients than they're finding today and activate clinicians to intervene at up to 4 times higher rates than current alert baselines that we see in the industry.
So Bharat, why is what Carenostics is doing so much better? What's the sort of the secret sauce hidden in the AI? Although I know you're not supposed to understand how AI works, but you do. So what are you doing that's special and better, that's coming up with these better results? Is it just that no one's, aimed at this this type of population before, this data before, or is it you've got something clever in the guts that what's the difference?
So Matthew, we take a considered approach which tackles what I believe are the 4 fundamental problems that has prevented healthcare AI from being applied at scale to HR data. The first I already spoke about, the need to develop local models. The world is rife with examples. For instance, the sepsis model that was developed from Epic Data, where you build these global models, but then when you take them to a local institution, at a second institution, they no longer work. So we already talked about that. Then what we do is we essentially use the fact that there's a lot of development, a lot of open source code developed in AI. We take the 12 most common kinds of AI models ranging from regression to gradient descent, neural nets, support vector machines, etc., random forests, And we built hundreds of thousands of AI models that are optimized on three criteria, which are the three criteria which I think is critical. The first is drift. And what happens, you just step back and think, there were 300,000 healthcare AI papers published in the last couple of years. Yet the number of those that have resulted in actually actively deployed healthcare systems is less than the number on one hand. In fact, I don't know of any. Why is that? Well, AI models work great when you test them, when you use them in a constrained setting. But then when you actually deploy them, very quickly their performance degrades. Why is that? Well, healthcare isn't static. It changes, sometimes gradually when practices change, or dramatically when something like COVID happens and people stop coming and your patterns change. So that's the first thing they optimize for, building models that are robust to what we call temporal drift. The second thing we optimize for is intelligibility. I come from a family of clinicians, and if a neural network told my father or my brother to do something, their first answer would be, why the heck should I? So it's very important that our models be able to explain to the clinician why a particular decision, and not to put it in terms of it's the third gradient of some combination of two variables, in terms of clinical terms that they can understand. And then the last thing, and this is near and dear to Carenostics' mission, is bias. It is well known that AI models, when applied de novo off the shelf to healthcare data, actually exacerbate and amplify the biases that we have, unfortunately, society has, which are captured in data. What we do is we take a very considered approach, working with world leaders in bias-adjusted machine learning who are working with us, such as Professor Raid Ghani from CMU, to optimize our treatment so that those models not only perform well for everybody, they work especially well for the vulnerable subpopulations that need this the most. To summarize, local models, temporal drift, intelligibility, and bias-adjusted machine learning. These are the key things that we work, and of course, working on large amounts of data and all the variety of data that's in the EHR.
So it all sounds great. Kanishka, you just raised a decent chunk of change. You already have some pretty luminary folks on the advisory board. You have Anish Chopra, John Glasser, and a few others. What do you got to do next? What's next to actually turn this into a real business?
Well, the exciting thing now is we're capitalized and poised to actually go grow. We're ready to go expand to many more health systems beyond Hackensack and the VA, where we're doing our work today, as well as Bharat mentioned, leverage the fact that our platform rapidly scales to new therapeutic areas to go tackle more areas in cardiology and immunology and respiratory and rare disease. And very excited that, not only to do this with my dad, but to build out the team that's going to do this all mission aligned to change healthcare. And like I said, ultimately stop the story of my grandfather from repeating itself.
Well, that's a great place to stop. So this is Bharat Rao and Kanishka Rao, who are the CEO and COO of Carenostics, just raised $5 million to hopefully detect disease earlier and change healthcare. Gents, thanks for your time, and congrats on the raise, and good luck. We'll look forward to seeing how this goes.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew.